So today we're going to move on into step 4 of our research report. So as of right now, you have your topic, you have your categories, you have your concept map, and this next step in that is going to be all of the research. This is the big portion of the project. So you will have quite a while to work on this, and you should be continuing to work on it a little bit each day and kind of work in the process. So because we can't have access to the library where some of your resources are going to be coming from, it is okay that all of your sources are from the internet. You will want a variety of sources. We want to make sure that we evaluate those sources and make sure that they are good, solid information. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So using this checklist, and this is something that we have talked about before when we look at our internet resources. Obviously, it needs to be relevant to your paper. Who created the page? We always want to really look for websites that are sponsored by educational websites, so .edus, .govs are going to be good, .orgs, organizations, .coms are okay. There's some great information out there on .coms. That just means it's a commercial website, but we want to make sure that it is good, valuable information. Making sure that the information is true. So when you start looking for your different websites, you should be seeing the same exact information for dates. Those are facts. Those are facts, right? We can't argue with facts. But if you're seeing different information, one of those websites is probably not the most reliable website. Who created the website? We're not going to want to go to blogs. So like in my example of the 1970s example that I'm kind of doing along the way, I want to make sure that it's not just somebody that is interested in the 1970s and has created their own website. I want to go to very valuable information, decade type websites. Making sure that it's up to date information as well. So when we look for our sources, and we've talked about this multiple times before, not going to Wikipedia sites or any of the wiki answers, ask.com, Yahoo Answers, about Quora, blogs, eHow. If you are not sure if a website is acceptable, like if it doesn't fit under one of these, email me, send me the link, have me look it over, and then I can give you a yes or no by looking at it myself. So as we start looking at our different sources and we've evaluated them, we've made sure that they are good, valuable resources, we want to have a working bibliography page or a works cited page. It means the same thing. So for that, and this is kind of where your next assignment will come in, the next step in our process, is we're going to create a Google Doc. And for right now, what you are going to do is just put the URLs in there. I will go to each of your URLs, look at them, make sure that they're good, valuable URLs, and then if they are, then you'll be able to move on to the next step as far as getting the full MLA citations where we have our author, document title, website, date we accessed it, date it was put on there, and the URL. You will need 5 to 7 resources. 5 would be the minimum you can have, and 7 would be the maximum that you could have. So for this Friday, April 17th, you are going to create a Google Doc. You are going to label that Google Doc research paper sources and then fill in whatever your topic is. So the 1970s was my example. You're going to list your 5 to 7 full URLs. Again, these do not need to be in MLA format yet. And once you've shared those on the Google Classroom assignment for the sources, you need to wait for approval. I will look at those and then I will give you the okay that yes, those are good, and then you can begin your note cards. After you've gotten the approval, the note cards. So taking notes from your sources. We have our websites, those are going to be the important things. And then here's just some guidelines for taking your notes. Making sure that we have the sources written on each. You have a couple different options. You can either take notes on actual note cards. This is probably going to be the best to organize. You can take notes on loose leaf, or you can create a Google Doc and type your notes in there. Whatever the best way for you to keep your information organized, and then you will obviously have to share that with me at some point. If you are using a book, I had given you the idea to use your history book or your science book, depending on your topic, we want to make sure that we have the page number written down on your, say, source note card. This will just help you to easily access that if you have to go back in at some point and get some more information. We always want to make sure that we paraphrase or summarize our information. We have to put it in our own words. Obviously, people's names, people's dates, those are, and other facts. Those are facts. Those dates, obviously, that has to be written down and that has to be proven true. But it's the information, it's how we present that date, the words that are surrounding that in the sentence format that needs to be in our own words. If we are not putting things in our own words, then we obviously know that that is plagiarism. If there is a quote, a direct quote, and we've talked about direct quotes in our last chapter, if there is a direct quote, we need to put quotation marks around it and give credit where credit is due. So we say exactly who spoke those words, and then we will cite it on our source page. Making sure that we take thorough notes, writing down facts, statistics, examples, so that we can give our audience a very clear picture of what we are researching. Elaborating, you will when we go to put this information in body paragraphs, we will elaborate with our own conclusions. So right now we're just getting really the facts, the statistics, the examples, the quotes written down, and then we will put it all together. So instead of saying the 761st Tank Battalion performed admirably in World War II, okay, these would now need to provide specific details for their accomplishments. So that's a very broad thing. So a couple of questions that we need to say is, does the information relate to my topic? And will this interest my audience and give them a clear understanding? So for that example with the Tank Battalion performed admirably, give me specific details that let us know exactly how they performed admirably. That is the information that you would want to write down on your note card. So this website here, this link, is an example of how your note cards should be formatted. This is probably the easiest way that I could get this information across to you so that you can see a visible example of how a note card should look. So when I go to do the note card, when you go to do your note card, the category would go at the top or written down on your piece of paper, and then you would put one fact, one example to fit within that category. So an example that I had with my 1970s concept map was Watergate. So I would find information pertaining to Watergate, and I would have different note cards explaining Watergate within my news headlines. So note taking, each note card should have a source number. So if I have 5 sources, maybe source number 1 is a New York Times article. I'm going to associate that with a number 1 source card. Anytime I reference a number 1, I know that it came from the New York Times. If one was from the Washington Post, I would kind of deem that one number 2. And then every time I put a 2 on a source card, I know that came from the Washington Post article. Page numbers would also need to be there if I found it from a book. Labeling your cards, your note cards with your categories is going to be so important. This is definitely going to help you when you organize your note cards later on, because all of your categories will become your different paragraphs. So as we're laying out and organizing, if all of the note cards labeled with the fashion of the 1970s, if all of that has fashion on there, then I can separate that into one pile. And then one pile could be my music of the 1970s, and so on. So Tuesday, April 28th. So you have a little while to work on this project. So each day, however you kind of want to do it, if you want to take a couple days for each category, if you just kind of want to, however you really want to organize it. If you find one website that has multiple different, take it source by source, that's completely fine as well. A minimum of 25 note cards. That might seem like a lot, but when you're only putting one source of information on each note card, it really, most of you are going to have more than that, more than the 25. One category per note card goes on there. So even if you have information from 2 different websites pertaining, one source card per category per source. So it really does add up with your information. Making sure you can decide how you want to write the information on the note card. The more information you put on the note card, the easier it's going to be to write your research report. If you write full sentences, some people like to just do bullet points. So it's really up to you how you write those note cards out. I probably will be doing a check-in after you guys kind of get going on this in a couple of days, so that I can make sure that you're on the right track, so that we don't get to April 28th and I see that you have done the note cards wrong or things need to be changed. So kind of be looking for that information as well. We'll talk over a little bit about this in our Zoom meeting this week. So make sure that if you have questions, you write them down and are prepared to ask them.